Before I cover the topic of today's video, I want to talk about some of the tragic happenings that took place in the world of professional wrestling last week, specifically the passing of Terry Funk and Bray Wyatt. Starting off with Terry Funk, Terry, who lived until the age of 79, which is thankfully longer than most professional wrestlers, which is a sad statement to make, but it is what it is. Terry is a guy who, especially if you're around my age range and you're a fan, from my generation, Terry's the type of guy that if he's not in your top 20, he should be very, very close to it. Terry is one of the easiest wrestlers to respect. And if you grew up watching him in any capacity, whether it be his days in the NWA, his runs in WWE, or his time in ECW, and even WCW, Terry was always a consistently entertaining presence, no matter where he was or what he did. And his personality as this wild cowboy type of guy made him a perfect presence on any show, and he fit in just about anywhere. He could fit into the blood and gut style of wrestling of the classic NWA. He could fit into the entertainment-centric WWE style product, and he could fit into a wild hardcore environment in ECW or some of the death matches that he had in Japan. Terry was a true journeyman that could fit in just about any company and anything that they gave him. I even like Chainsaw Charlie, to be honest with you. Like, it's not his greatest run ever, but I thought it was kind of funny to watch a wild man with a chainsaw paired up with Cactus Jack. I thought he had some very good stuff during that run. But yeah, Terry, one of the easiest wrestlers to respect for the amount of effort and hard work that he put into everything that he did. And I'm thinking back, I think the first Terry Funk match I ever saw was his WWF title match with Hogan that they had on Saturday Night's Main Event. And I guess you could say I've been a fan of Terry's ever since, because I was just drawn to his wild cowboy-like personality. And his stuff with Ric Flair that he did in '89, one of the best feuds in both men's careers, I think. Some of the best matches in both men's careers. And his runs with Mick Foley in the crazy, wild, hardcore matches that they had, both as partners and against each other. Really kind of changed the shape of the business and allowed for more extreme style action. I mean, when you see Terry Funk running around with a branding iron that's on fire and trying to hit Cactus with it, I mean, that's like that's some wild imagery that can only come from somebody as crazy as Terry Funk. And Terry was just so entertaining for so long. And even in I'll tell this story, my experience with Terry Funk. A friend of mine, James Walsh, runs his own wrestling interview site, WrestlingEpicenter.com, where I worked at for a few years. And he had Terry Funk on his show. This was years ago, like 20 years ago. And the WrestleMania 14 dumpster match came up, and James's co-host at the time, Eric Clancy, my co-host on Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, said, it's like, yeah, you had that match with the New Age Outlaws. That was a fun match. And then Terry says, it wasn't fun for me. I lost my ass in that match, because he got legitimately hurt on one of the bumps and it like tore a muscle in his butt, and so he said, I lost my ass with that match. And from that moment on, Terry, that was just a wild line that between James and I, we always would just quote that to each other back and forth because it was so funny. And we would do our Terry Funk impressions, which the key to a Terry Funk impression, I'm no master of impressions, but the key to a good Terry Funk impression is to sound like you're depressed and you're almost on the verge of tears, but then you cuss a lot. You egg-sucking dog, you stupid son of a bitch. I'm the Funker, damn it. That's a Terry Funk impression, or at least that's my Terry Funk impression. But that line has been a source of entertainment between James and I for years and years and years, and that's something I'll always appreciate from Terry Funk, because he was what he was, and he was completely honest about what he was, and for him to say something that blunt was just hysterical to me. And if I had been on that specific call, I would have. And once Terry dropped that line, I would have burst out into hysterics because it's just such a great moment. But yeah, Terry is an absolute complete legend in this industry and deserves all of the respect that he's gotten from his peers and from fans. And I think Terry Funk, even though 79 is longer than most wrestlers, it still feels way too soon to lose Terry because he's just one of the most beloved figures in pro wrestling, and that's a level that he has rightfully achieved and he fully deserves. So. All love and respect to Terry Funk and his family during this time, and I wish him all the best. I wish them all the best. And moving right along to, I think most would agree, is the more tragic loss and the more shocking loss, and that was the loss of Wyndham Rotunda Bray Wyatt, which happened seemingly out of the blue, at least for fans. It just came out of nowhere. And it turns out he'd been sick for most of the year and has been having heart problems, and unfortunately, and it's so weird because I remember reading a couple weeks ago that he was almost ready for a return, like he was ready to come back almost, and then to hear that he passed is just very shocking, very sad, especially since he's 2 years younger than me, and he's already gone, and it's just one of those depressing, sad losses. And what kind of hits close to home for me now is that he's a father, he was a husband, and a loving family man, and now his family's without a father and a husband, and that's where it really hits home for me personally, and just very, very sad and very depressing. Really shocked everyone when it happened, and it kind of reminds me of when Brody passed away in AEW, because it was like he worked the stuff with Cody, and then he kind of disappeared, and it's like, where's Brody? What's going on? And then it turns out he had been sick and he died, and that was an unfortunate series of events. And it's just crazy to think of the original Wyatt family. I remember I was making videos on this channel when they first showed up, and I was kind of hyping their arrival because I thought the gimmick was so great just from the vignettes. And it's hard to imagine now, like less than a decade later, 2 of the 3 are gone, and that's a tough pill to swallow, and it's again very sad, very shocking, very depressing. But talking about Bray Wyatt's impact on the wrestling industry, I've said for years that he was one of the most mismanaged, mishandled talents of this generation. He should have been the heir apparent to The Undertaker, should have become much bigger than he was, and should have been handled much better than he was, when you consider how great the Wyatt family stuff got over. And then he reinvented himself as The Fiend, and how big that got over initially. And WWE just never fully committed themselves to making him as big as he could have been. Like, he became like kind of just a high-level bad guy to be fed to the John Cenas and the Undertakers of the world, at a time when Cena and Undertaker were really, winding down and got to start thinking about the future. I don't know. Like, to me, it would have made more sense to have Bray look a lot stronger against them and build him into something bigger and better. But that unfortunately didn't really happen. But I think it speaks volumes for Bray Wyatt's talent and his impact, that despite not being handled as well as he should have been, he still left a major impression on a lot of people. And I think that the outpouring of sympathy and love for him and his family, I think, is indicative of that. He's not just some failure in the wrestling industry. I think he did leave an impact, and I think he did leave a huge mark, and became, if not one of the top stars in the industry, at least someone who was very memorable, and somebody who was worth watching while he was around. And it's just, man, he's going to be one of the biggest what-ifs, or what could-have-beens in wrestling history, because there was a lot of potential there, and I think they left a lot of money on the table with him. But what we did get was very, very special. I think he was a very special performer, and it was just, I was speechless when I read it, that he had passed, because it was just such a shock, and so unfortunate. And again, my heart goes out to his wife, his children, and his family during what I'm sure is a very, very difficult time. But I think the WWE paid tribute to him very well, and paid tribute to Funk very well. These are 2 big losses and big, tough pills to swallow. But All I can say now is rest in peace to both of them. They were very special performers, and I think as fans, they will always have our admiration. But the ones most impacted by this are their friends and family, the ones who knew them and loved them. And my heart and my best wishes go out to them during this very trying time. So I just wanted to start off this video and pay my respects to two wrestling performers that I have a ton of respect for. Now, before I jump into the main topic of this video, there is one more distraction, one more reminder that I want to get out there, and that is my book, Godzilla, the Monster Fight Record, Volumes 1 and 2 are available for sale right now on Amazon. If you've not purchased them yet, you can do so over at Amazon. The links will be in the description. Also, the books are available for pre-order on barnesandnoble.com and will be available for purchase in all formats, digital, paperback, and hardcover. On September 9th, which is next Saturday, so be on the lookout for that. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you to everybody who's bought the book already, but if you haven't, you can go ahead and pick them up at Amazon. Now, as much as I would like to talk about Godzilla, this video is going to be largely wrestling-centric. We had a bit of a big show last weekend. I wanted to get this video out sooner, get my feelings on AEW's All In, their big stadium show from Wembley, which was an immensely successful event, both creatively, financially, and just about every other metric. It was a huge, momentous occasion for AEW. Biggest and best show that they've ever done, bar none. And it was so satisfying to see another company besides WWE put on a show this big. There's a lot of quibbling back and forth over the official number of certain attendance records. I don't want to get into all of that. All reports are saying that the number that AEW reported, 81,000 tickets sold, is legitimate. But where that, clashes with WWE numbers that they've reported in the past, I don't want to get into all that. Either way, it's just kind of 6 in one, half a dozen in the other, kind of ticky-tacky back and forth stuff. Regardless of how you look at it, it is a monumental occasion for AEW that they were able to pull that off. And I wanted to come out here and talk about what a great show it was, how much I enjoyed it, and how big of an event it really was. Unfortunately, everything that they accomplished has been overshadowed by backstage drama once again involving CM Punk. Almost a year removed from the original Brawl Out, we get a sequel where apparently he came to blows with Jack Perry backstage after Jack Perry called him out on camera about using real glass, which a few weeks ago it had dropped that Punk and Perry got into a scuffle, a disagreement over whether or not real glass should be used in a segment, and Perry was referencing that, which unfortunately kind of overshadowed his match. I'm not a huge fan of backstage drama spilling onto the camera unless you're going to make a storyline out of it. And if you're not, you're just being petty and silly and just giving people a peek behind the curtain that they shouldn't get. But in any case, this all happened right as the show was going on the air, apparently, because Punk's match was first. And they were scrambling to see, is Punk going to go out there? Did he just quit? What is going on? And there have been conflicting reports about what happened, who was at fault, who started it, and whatever. I've heard both versions. I've heard Punk was provoked by Perry, and he finished it. I've heard that Punk started it with Jack Perry, and is the one who escalated everything and started the whole kerfluffle. I've heard multiple different versions. Apparently, Punk almost got into a fight with Miro, which has since been debunked. That apparently didn't happen, but now it's I've heard a version where Punk lunged after Tony Khan. It kind of reminds me of, I remember when Joey Mercury got fired from WWE, this was years ago, and the rumor going around online is that he got his termination papers and then went into the office and tried to tackle Stephanie McMahon or something ridiculous like that. And I'm like, that didn't happen. Come on. And sure enough, it's pretty much, it was debunked pretty quickly. But it sounds like it's like an escalated version of that, where it's like there's 17 different stories out there and all of them sound crazy. What is true apparently is that AEW didn't arrange for transportation for CM Punk from the airport to the event, and he had to take the subway over there, which that's not, that feels like, I don't want to believe that was done accidentally. That feels like somebody had it in for Punk, because there were no reports of anybody else having that happen to them. So, Lord only knows. I mean, again, all of this is just speculatory. The investigation is ongoing, as they say. Apparently, both Punk and Jack Perry have been suspended, and one of the reasons I pushed this video back a few days is that I wanted to wait until there was some kind of an official follow-up. I thought maybe they would announce something on Dynamite. They didn't. All Out is still proceeding this weekend in Chicago, and by all indications, we still don't know if Punk's going to be there or not. Which might be more interesting than anything they're doing on TV to promote this kind of lame duck pay-per-view, which I really don't think they should be doing, this event. I think having 2 pay-per-views back-to-back weeks is overkill, especially with a $50 price tag. I think that's absolutely insane. And I knew it when they said that they were going to do All In and All Out back-to-back. I'm like, that's ridiculous. It would have been more acceptable if they had offered some kind of a deal where you get like a discounted package where you order both, but as far as I know, that wasn't offered, because it hadn't been offered. I might have been tempted to, but as is, I have no desire to watch that show now, and I'm not paying $50 to watch again a lame duck card. Like, there have been episodes of Dynamite with better cards than All Out, which I'll get into. I'm going to talk about All In, and I'm going to talk about Payback and All Out, which are happening this weekend, and give my previews of those, even though I don't plan on watching either show. Not out of spite, but more out of, like, I'm going to be busy this weekend, and I watched All In this weekend, so I don't got time to watch more pay-per-views, and neither card is can't miss, so I'm going to have an easy time skipping both events, I think. But anyway, yeah, the situation with Punk, I mean, it's really a shame, because philosophically, when it comes to professional wrestling, I bet I align more with Punk than I do, like, the Elite. If I sat down and talked to them about wrestling, I'm sure I would find more common ground with the way CM Punk thinks things through and how he feels about how things should be done. And if I had been there for the discussion about, hey, we should use real glass for this spot, I'd have been like, are you out of your goddamn mind? No. Like, I would have been on Punk's side. I was like, are you nuts? Like, that's crazy. Stuntmen don't even do that. They have prop glass. Like, come on. Like, no need to be stupid. Be safe. So I would have been on Punk's side for that one. At least, again, the basic philosophy of, like, let's not try to kill ourselves and try to keep it as safe as humanly possible. I get that there's an inherent risk factor to what we do regardless, but let's not push it. And that would have been that would have been my take on the matter. But philosophically, I do align more with Punk. And I'm sure, like, any disagreements he's had with the Elite or anybody else, I would probably find myself on his side. Again, as far as, like, the core of the issue, I would probably find myself on his side. But it's like, man, he's the common denominator in a lot of crap that happens. And it's like, here we are, a year removed from the Brawl Out, and here he is once again, like, the center of controversy. And I don't know if it's like, because I've had my suspicions about the Elite. I still think, even though recently the Bucks made comments about Cody and there's no ill will between the two parties, something happened between Cody and the Elite. Like, something had to have happened, because he was on the Elite on TV until he wasn't, without explanation, and then he left AEW. So to me, I feel like there was something going on there that neither party wants to comment on. They may have smoothed things over since then, and they're like, they're amicable now, but and I think Cody is better at playing the political game of not letting it explode into a crazy, shit show. And there might be some kind of a philosophical difference between Punk and the Elite, and maybe the Elite are doing something to piss him off, or like-minded people with the Elite, like a Jack Perry or something like that, are just going out of their way to piss him off. And he's the type of guy that doesn't know how to react when he gets pissed off. His idea of he doesn't know how to turn the other cheek. He knows how to, like, load up a bazooka and just hit the fire button and just go to town and set everything else around him ablaze on the way down. I don't mean to get religious here at all, but there are some values that even non-religious people can get out of the Bible, and I think turning the other cheek sometimes is a good one. Not always, because you don't want to be a doormat, but there are times it's like, okay, look, you're a star attraction on the biggest show that this company's ever done. You're the opening match, and you're letting a little, a little shithead like Jack Perry get under your skin, and you're going to blow it up and jeopardize absolutely everything. And then when you do it again, because again, this isn't the first time this has happened, you do it again, and then your activities backstage is what's dominating online discussion, and not what a success All In was, and what a great show it was for AEW in many ways. And it's just a shame whenever that happened. It happened last year with All Out, where it's like All Out was like one of the best shows they ever did, and then nobody cared because they were all talking about the situation with Punk. And it's that he's very bad at handling things. He's very, very bad at it. And, that discussion keeps coming up. It's like, look, he came back. They gave him his own show to be separated from the Elite. They gave him virtually everything he wanted, and here he's still not happy. And it's just, and people are getting under his skin, and I don't know what it is with him. I really don't. And, he's a performer that I respect, but is he worth the trouble? Is he worth this much, craziness? Because again, if this was the first time this happened, okay, sure, but we're talking incident number 2 or 3 in less than 2 years. It's like, I don't know. It's like, do you just cut ties at this point? But then what happens to Collision? Because Collision was built around him, and now it's like, it becomes it was already kind of a lame duck show, because it's like, I've said before, it's like, it's oversaturation. You can't do a 2-hour Dynamite, a 1-hour Rampage, and then expect people on Saturdays to be all of a sudden excited for more AEW content. So it's already kind of getting the crappy end of the stick there. But then you take Punk away from that, the guy who the entire show was built around. It's like, well, if they lose Punk, then Collision is just complete. It's just 2-hour Rampage at that point. So like, who cares? And I don't know. Like, I don't know where everything goes. We still don't know if he's going to be at All Out or not, because I guarantee whatever his match was going to be, probably it was supposed to be a match with Ricky Starks, if I was a betting man. And there's talks that it's going to be Ricky Starks versus somebody defending Ricky Steamboat's honor in a strap match is kind of what it's going to be. I mean, I'm looking at that All Out card. It's like, dude, the Punk match was definitely going to main event, because what else is on that card? There was nothing. And now it's like already kind of a lame card has even less going for it, because now the top guy, who was kind of the main draw of the entire event, is likely not going to be there. But we still don't know. We'll wait until Collision, and where they finalize this rushed mess of a card, and see if Punk shows up on the show or anything. I don't know. But man, the whole thing is just very complicated, very messy, and it points to the lack of stability backstage with AEW, where stuff like this should not be dominating day-to-day news discussions about the company. It makes the company look bad, it makes everybody involved in the company look bad, and it takes away from monumental occasions like All In, which, as I said before, was a show I thoroughly enjoyed. So we'll just have to wait and see what's going on with Punk, but my hopes are not very high that he's going to be back on AEW programming in the near future, given all the insanity that has gone on with him. But who knows? I mean, every time something like this happens, he's going to have less and less people defending him, or less and less people on his side. And I don't know. I don't know if he needs to go to anger management. I don't know if he needs to. And again, I don't even know if the entire thing was his fault this time. But again, it's like I'm seeing a common denominator here, and it's like it's so easy to get him riled up that it's like, dude, like just turn the other cheek. Just turn the other cheek sometimes. There's a time and a place. And personally, I do. There's a part of me that says, like, just let him fight it out backstage. Let him settle it like men, and just be cowboys and just fight it out and let whatever happens happen. But obviously, these companies can't really do that. But it's I wouldn't know what to do in this situation. It's such a mess. But anyways, going back to All In and giving my official review on it almost a week late. But All In, I thought overall was a really good show. I would have preferred more singles matches and less like multi-person, spot festy type of matches. But for the most part, I found most of the matches to be enjoyable. I was surprised at how fast it all went. I think the spectacle of it was very high, given the venue and how excited the crowd was all night long. It didn't feel like a typically long AEW pay-per-view, even though it was the exact same length. One of their problems with pay-per-views is that they are of the mindset that every match needs to try to be the best match on the show, so we have all these 20, 30-minute barn burners, and then you just get exhausted by the end of it. But they did that in the first half of the show, and then they kind of tapered it back a little bit and then exploded with the main event. When it felt a little bit better paced than previous pay-per-views they had done, where there was at least a little bit of a downturn in towards the middle of the show, and then they built back up to a great main event with plenty of spectacle sprinkled in all throughout. So, I thought All In was really, really good. Starting with the pre-show, which they had a couple of segments on there, like the Miro and Hobbs contract signing, which I guess it's kind of nice that they gave them, even if they weren't going to put them on the card, which I would have preferred having this match on this card because A, I want more singles matches, and B, I would have liked to have seen a Haas fight, because that's like kind of the one thing this card was lacking. There was no big, like, burly, brute Haas fight, and I would have liked to have seen that. But it's like, hey, if you're going to save him for the next pay-per-view, give him a little bit of promotion on the big show and let him do a contract signing on the pre-show. I wouldn't have minded if they'd stuck this on the main card, honestly, just as kind of a break from the action and as like an advertisement for the next pay-per-view. But as is, okay, that was fine. The Jeff Jarrett Grado segment felt random as all get out. Like, it's like, I don't know what the point of that was, but outside of Jeff Jarrett being a great heel, like, there was no real point to any of that. There had been talks that they were going to do Jeff Jarrett versus Grado at the Dome, and they didn't do a match, thank heavens, but they did do a kind of this random segment that didn't really feel like it accomplished anything except pop the crowd. I like Jeff, nothing wrong with Jeff. I like Jay Lethal. I like Sanjay Dutt. I just felt like this was kind of a directionless mess. But hey, it was better than that stupid Texas Chainsaw Massacre match they did on Dynamite, which is probably the worst match I've seen this year. That was awful. And yes, I know it was done for charity. Like, all the money they made off that promotion was done for charity, and I get that, and that's great. But man, did it come off poorly on TV. But this was not as bad as that. It just kind of felt like random fluff. But as far as matches go, we got what might be the greatest pre-show match of all time, and that is Better Than You Bebe winning the ROH Tag Team titles from Aussie Open. A really entertaining match that showed just how over MJF is, because good lord, that crowd, he had that crowd in the palm of his hands, and it's like, okay, this is why MJF gets it more than anybody. He can do a stupid, like, kangaroo dance to set up a drop kick. It wasn't even like a real kangaroo kick. It was just a drop kick with a prelude, and yet he got him to pop harder for that than most people the entire night could do, doing whatever fancy spot they could come up with. And it's like, MJF gets it, and they teased the dive, and he was able to play with them in that way. And the match was very, very entertaining, and the main eventers for the evening, MJF and Adam Cole, won the ROH Tag Team titles, whatever that means. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of ROH belts being featured on AEW programming because there's too many belts as it is, but as a feel-good moment and as kind of a precursor to that night's main event, I thought this match worked out great and really showed off just how good MJF really is. So that one was good. And then we got the FTW Rules match for the FTW Championship. A solid little hardcore match. I felt like starting with the limo stuff kind of had it peak early because the limo stuff was cooler than anything they did in the ring. But overall, it was a nice, solid, hardcore match. Hook won the belt back, thank God. Well, I mean, it's the FTW title. Who really cares? But, I prefer Hook going over than Jack Perry because Hook is more of a... Hook's more of a dynamo, I think, and more of like an explosive and more fun to watch than Jack Perry, but that's my opinion. Of course, any good work they did in this match was completely undone by Jack Perry's comments and the subsequent fight backstage that took place, but whatever. It was a solid hardcore match for the pre-show. Nothing more, nothing less. But we get onto the main card, and we started off with CM Punk versus Samoa Joe 5. Removing all the Punk backstage discussion from this entirely, which to his credit, all that happened, and he goes out there, and there were no signs that there were any problems. So he was able to mask it while he was out there performing. But it is kind of amazing for anybody who watched the Ring of Honor matches that these two had, which I did. This match was nowhere near as good as those, but it is kind of amazing that these guys who had a trilogy of matches that really put Ring of Honor on the map and really helped establish the Ring of Honor style that would go on to shape modern WWE and current AEW, for better or worse. It's kind of strangely appropriate that they got to go out there in the dome and in the stadium and have a match like this and be able to kind of open up the card and have a nice, solid, hard-hitting match in the process. Again, it was nowhere near as good as their Ring of Honor matches, but it was nice, stiff, hard-hitting match, and the crowd seemed to eat it up and accept it as a really solid opener. This seemed to be more on Punk's case than Joe's, but they were able to have some fun with it, did some Hulk Hogan stuff to kind of play with the crowd a little bit, and had some fun with it, so it wasn't... Again, it wasn't one of the hour-long barn burners that they had done in the past, but on this card, there was no way that was going to fly anyway, and I don't think that those two are capable of having that same type of match with each other at this point, but as a solid opener to the show, I thought it went really, really well. Now, we will have to wait and see what is the fate of the real World Championship, because you got to think like they were going to do Punk and MJF at some point, to kind of rectify that whole scenario, which they were teasing way back when a year ago when MJF came back and the whole thing got kiboshed. So it's like, man, MJF, he just can't get that. He can't get that big title match with Punk, which I'm sure he would want that. I'm sure Punk would probably, MJF is a guy he would enjoy working with and not want to beat up backstage. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation, but at least this match was pretty good. Then we got what I think is probably the weakest match on the show, and that's the Trios match. Bullet Club Gold, Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Konosuke Takeshita defeating the Golden Elite, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, and Kota Ibushi. If this match had taken place, let's say SummerSlam 92, which was the big pay-per-view in Wembley, you put this match on that card, and it seems amazing. Unfortunately, this match as is virtually indistinguishable from matches I see once or twice, maybe even 3 times a week on AEW programming. So it's like, it's another trios match, multi-person spot festy match where they're just bouncing around the ring doing spots, and the whole thing, again, looks indistinguishable from stuff I see on AEW programming every week. So it wasn't really that engaging. It was just kind of the same type of thing I've seen a million times from AEW in the past, where again, like, you do that match in 92 in an era when most of WWF programming was squash matches, promos, and angles, and then you do a match like this, it's like, whoa, that match seemed amazing. Like, dude, SummerSlam 91, like, Ricky Steamboat, Texas Tornado, and the British Bulldog versus Warlord and Power and Glory seemed like a really cool opener, a really cool match, and that match is virtually mundane by today's standards, but it's also, we didn't see that type of match every week, so it seemed more special, and that's where the modern style of programming kind of undermines matches like this, where it's like these 6 guys who are busting their asses to bounce around the ring and do whatever they can to get over, and it just kind of felt like, I've seen it. Takeshita getting the win over Omega was a little shocking, but it's considering it set up a singles match for All Out. Probably one of the few matches at All Out that has any kind of intrigue to it, or at least it would if I was sold on Takeshita in any way, shape, or form. He's one of those guys, and AEW does this from time to time. They pick a guy, and they build storylines around that guy, expecting us to give a crap, whether it be Wheeler Yuta, or Daniel Garcia, or Action Andretti, or Konosuke Takeshita, where they build like big storyline developments into these guys. And I'm all for making young talents, but who's like looking at Wheeler Yuta and Takeshita and Daniel Garcia and going, this guy, main eventer, this guy right here, like, who's seeing that? And meanwhile, I'm like, you got Ricky Starks, right? I'm like Ricky Starks' biggest advocate, and it's like, I'm just thinking, why is he not in that spot? Because he's better than all those guys I just listed. Dante Martin, before he got hurt, like, he was a guy that they kept trying to make into something, and I'm like, but he's so boring. What are we doing? Like, come on, guys. I'm not saying they're bad workers or anything, but they're not like worth the amount of promotion that they were getting on TV. And I put Takeshita in that same class, where it's like, look, he's not a bad worker, but he doesn't strike me as somebody that's on Omega's level as a star or as a main event player, but they want us to think that he is or could potentially be, and I just don't see it, to be perfectly honest. But that's my take. So yeah, this was my least favorite match of the night, but it wasn't bad. It was just, I wasn't repulsed by it. I just think modern wrestling has sort of numbed me to those type of matches. But one thing I am not numb to is good, solid, classic 2-on-2 tag team wrestling, and that's what the next match gave us. For the AEW World Tag Team Championship, FTR successfully defending the belts against the Young Bucks. These two teams have worked well together in the past. I think I enjoyed their second match more. That was the one where they stole all the tag team finishers, and I just had a blast watching them basically reference the entire history of tag team wrestling. But this one was a nice, solid clash of styles. And thankfully, the team I prefer, FTR, got the big win in the big stadium on the big show and won out 2-1 on the trilogy. And I'm like, yeah, FTR, they're my guys. And this was the match that we thought we might not get given certain legal troubles involving FTR, but we got the match. I thought it was very good. It was one of the better matches on the show, and if you like good, solid tag team wrestling between two teams of clashing styles, I think this match should wet your whistle a little bit. So I think when you're working with someone like FTR, I think some of the lesser tendencies of a team like the Bucks, where they have a tendency to just bounce all over the ring and do whatever they want, FTR tends to ground the match at least a little bit and keep some semblance of the rules of tag team wrestling in play, which is great to see, and I always appreciate that, and it makes for a more entertaining match. So I thought this match was a lot of fun. But that leads us into the Stadium Stampede match, which is, I'm sure, was a polarizing one for a lot of people. It's the big hardcore battle royal bloodbath for this show, and I get why they wanted to do this. I get it, it's a big stadium, and Stadium Stampede is kind of like AEW's signature creation, at least as far as match types goes. So I understand why they wanted to do this. I just, again, I would have preferred a singles match here. I know they're doing Moxley versus Orange Cassidy for the international title at All Out, which I guess is fine, but again, this show could have used a few more singles matches. I think I would have preferred, I don't know, Moxley versus Penta or something like that as a singles match. And I don't know, I would have had more singles matches, and then anybody that deserved to be on the card, I would stick them in a battle royal. That's what I would do. But in any case, we did get this match, and it was a wild bloodbath involving just about everything you could possibly imagine. And I thought Orange came off well here. I think Eddie is right at home in matches like this. I think Moxley's right at home in matches like this. And overall, it was a very entertaining, wild, hardcore match. And I emphasize the word hardcore because, and I'm not trying to knock WWE here, but they're such a sanitized and safe product most of the time that their Extreme Rules or their hardcore matches aren't really hardcore matches. And in paying tribute to Terry Funk, they did a Terry Funk hardcore match on SmackDown last week. And I think anybody watching that match would be like, that's not a hardcore match. That's a Texas Tornado match, PG style. Like, that wasn't a hardcore match. And like, okay, this is a hardcore match. This was the blood and guts, violence to the extreme. That was hardcore, and this is more in line with, like, if you're a fan of that type of stuff, this was more in line with what you're probably looking for. And I think it's, to AEW's credit, it's like they've got to differentiate themselves from WWE, and I think that's one way to do it. It's like, look, we've got blood, we've got, violent bloodbaths on our show, and that's one thing that WWE in their current position can't really do. So I understand why they wanted to have a match like this, and it was entertaining for what it was. This is one of those situations where I would have preferred a singles match, but it is what it is. And then after that wild free-for-all, I thought, oh man, good luck trying to follow that. And this is the point where I expected the show to dip, because it's like they blew their load and they did too much. But I think the next few matches were shorter, and I think that gave it a little bit more of a kind of a better pacing. And it felt like the matches that followed the Stadium Stampede and the tag match and the six-man tag, which were all 20-plus minute matches, the next few matches were a little bit on the shorter side, at least by AEW standards, and it was actually nice to see because everything kind of was paced a little bit better, had a little bit more of a brisk pace, and it felt like they weren't trying to just blow their load and just explode every spot that they possibly could to try and get people to care, and filled it with plenty of spectacle to get us to care about certain things, but didn't overdo it. So it felt like there was some nice pacing in the second half of the show to where I didn't feel exhausted by the time the main event came. But the next match was the four-way for the AEW Women's World Championship. This is another case where I think maybe would have preferred a singles match, but I think in AEW's mindset, it's like they wanted to reward Britt Baker for being like the big star of the women's division and put her in a stadium setting. I think they wanted to reward Shida for all the hard work she did during the pandemic and keeping them afloat, keeping the women's division afloat during that very trying time. I think in most perfect worlds, it would have been Saraya and Toni Storm one-on-one, but I was like, all right, fine. I won't get too upset over this. And there's been some talk online about why did AEW only have one women's match on this entire show, and why was it the shortest match on the show and everything like that. I'll say this, like, look, the women's division right now is the weakest part of AEW. It is. On a week-to-week programming, it is the weakest part, and you can't say it's, oh, they haven't tried. They main evented like 2 Dynamites in a row or something like that. Like, they're regularly featured on the show, and yet it's continuously like the weakest element of the program. And there's nothing the women they're doing that are on par with like what MJF and Adam Cole are doing, or on par with what CM Punk was doing prior to, Brawl Out Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. And certain guys, they're just certain stars I would much rather watch than the women. And I think if I feel like these 4 women were the only 4 you could justify in any, and that's in my kindest state, having any kind of a spot on this big show. If you're trying to justify the women having more than one match in this current environment of AEW is almost like, how can you do that? The overall division is just not great right now. It's not that they don't have talented women. It's just that for whatever reason, things aren't clicking and they aren't delivering when the spotlight is on them most of the time. And as for this match being the shortest match on the show, I think it succeeded because it was a shorter match. I think it kind of over-delivered, because I came into this match not giving a crap about any of it, but I think Saraya being in her home country and having the hometown crowd on her side, I think Toni Storm having a history in the UK, I think playing with the Outcasts, having a dissension between them, I think working in Saraya's family, and I think working in some key big spots like that stomp that Britt Baker did, while Saraya had her held up, elevated in her submission finish, like stuff like that, made this match like a quick but exciting contest that far exceeded any and all expectations. I think if this match had gone any longer, it probably would have tapered off at some point. It's like, you don't always need to be a 30-minute barn burner to leave an impression or get over. I think this match played better because it was shorter. And I think we need more shorter matches. This whole, need to go longer. I'm like, no, go shorter. Unless you unless the situation really, really calls for it. And I think in the less than 10 minutes that the 4 women got, I think they did about as well as you possibly could with less than 10 minutes and did just fine in there. And I also wonder if Saraya's condition and Britt Baker's current condition, because I believe her back is shot, personally, that making the match shorter help them out a little bit and help them hide some of their deficiencies and let the match play better as a result. So, overall, I thought it was a really fun match. It was one of the better parts of the show. Saraya's entrance was cool, coming out to We Will Rock You with her whole family, one of the better entrances of the night. I thought her title win felt like a big deal, considering her history and everything that she's gone through, and that she did it in her home country. I thought that came off well. It was a nice moment on the show, and people were kind of like, oh, the women deserve more. And I'm like, they need to establish consistency in delivering before the women should get more. I think it's some level of a meritocracy has to be here, I think. And right now, the women have been consistently the weakest part of the show, and this is the first time in a while that they weren't. So, but they've got to keep that consistently, in my mind. But that's my take on the matter. I thought this match was good. I thought everybody came off looking good by the time it was done. And Saraya looked like a star by the time it was over. Whether or not they can maintain that outside of London, I don't know. But for that one night, it looked like a big deal, and it felt like a big deal. So, speaking of cool entrances, we got the coffin match next. Darby Allin and Sting came out to Sting's Metallica theme, which I popped for, being an old WCW fan. That was kind of neat. And they defeated Christian Cage and Swerve Strickland in a coffin match that was full of spectacle. It had plenty of big bumps from Darby Allin, who's, I swear, is bound and determined to kill himself. with some of the bumps he takes. But we also got some nice spectacle from Sting and playing with the coffin a little bit and like showing like sticking your arm out or sticking the bat out so it doesn't close all the way, and having playing with the gimmick and making it a part of the match and using it as a prop effectively. And speaking personally, as somebody who is such a big fan of Sting, it was really cool for me to get to see him succeed and get a nice moment in the big stadium setting, because he never really got that before. He got, when you look back on WCW's history, the biggest show they ever did was the Georgia Dome Nitro, which was Goldberg's Night in the Sun. Sting was on that show and he had a 30-second squash, so he didn't really get to really have a star moment inside of the stadium. And then he went to WrestleMania 31. We all know what happened there. Everybody walked away from that disappointed because he had to do the favors for Triple H for some reason. But that felt like WWE wiping their boots off of the very last of WCW's legacy. That's how it came across to us. So it was like, man, Sting's just never going to get that big moment in a stadium. Well, he did here. And he looked like a star, and to see, those thousands and thousands of people chanting "You Still Got It" at Sting, who's one of my personal favorites of all time, it feels good. It feels good. And like, Sting deserved that moment. He deserved. Here's a guy who's had to eat a lot of shit over the years, had to try to make chicken shit into chicken salad, both in WCW and TNA, who did whatever was asked of him, no matter whether it was great or stupid. Sting's a guy who's always been wherever he worked, he was always a company guy and did whatever was asked of him, and more often than not, he delivered, and he deserved like a moment like this, and so it was nice for him. Sting and Darby won, obviously. That was pretty much, given that Darby was going to have a title shot at the next pay-per-view a week later, it would make no sense for them to lose here. But this was a very enjoyable match that, again, didn't overstay its welcome, didn't do too much, just had some fun, put the spotlight on Sting and Darby, and Swerve, who's kind of won me over. I remember when they first brought him in and they tried to treat it like a big deal. I was like, I liked him in Lucha Underground, but is he really a big deal? But he's an effective heel, and I was like, maybe they should think about giving him a little bit more to do, because he was pretty good here. So, coffin match gets a thumbs up for me. I really enjoyed it. Then we got a match that I thought for sure was going to go half an hour, and that was Will Ospreay and Chris Jericho. With Don Callis and Sammy Guevara in the respective corners. I expected this one is like, okay, get your popcorn ready. This one's going to be a long one. This is going to be like one of the big 30-minute matches on the show. And it wasn't. It was very short, actually. Short by today's standards. It was about 15 minutes long. And I think they managed to get a lot into those 15 minutes, and it was all designed to make Will Ospreay look good, and I think they succeeded. I think this was a big kind of raising the stock of Will Ospreay, who, people are going to be bargaining for him in a few months, and AEW should try to get him. WWE should try to get him. I think he's a guy who's got a very unique in-ring style. It kind of reminds me of like a young AJ Styles, like when I first started watching AJ in the mid-2000s, like just this amazing athlete that could do all sorts of things, and even better than young AJ, actually, in a lot of the things he can do. And he's grown as a performer, too, where he isn't just about the spots. He's about projecting a star-like quality as well. And I think I think this match helped raise his stock significantly because of that. And he got to get a relatively clean win over Chris Jericho in a match that was pretty good with some really cool reversals. And again, didn't overstay its welcome, didn't go too long, and just had a nice, solid, effective match that was designed to make Ospreay look good and set up an eventual confrontation between Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, which looks like that's where we're headed based on how Dynamite played out this week. All of this was really, really good. And just effectively done all around. If I have any kind of a knock, I would say Chris Jericho singing Judas for his entrance. I get why they did that, but I think it would have played better if Ozzy just played the music and let the audience sing it. I think that would have probably played better, but whatever. What are you going to do? This match was really, really good. And again, Will Ospreay, don't be surprised if he shows back up in AEW in a few months, because he was, I think he really raised his stock here. And then we got one of the feel-good matches of the night. The Acclaimed and Billy Gunn defeating the House of Black to become the new AEW Trios champions in a no-holds-barred match. And when they made the match no-holds-barred, I was like, oh man, we've already had a couple of these tonight, and I'm a little tired of these multi-person free-for-alls. But And I also didn't quite understand like the whole point of like Daddy Ass won't be there, but Billy Gunn will be. And it's like, look, Billy Gunn and Daddy Ass are virtually interchangeable. It's not like Cactus Jack and Dude Love. It's not like there's a huge difference between the two. I feel like. So I did that part of it. I was like, that's whatever. But I think they effectively built up the story where Billy felt like he needed to retire. And he retired after the 2 losses to the House of Black. But after they provoked the Acclaim more and more, Billy Gunn came back. And this is a last shot to win the trios titles. And I think that very basic story was effectively told. And once again, this match didn't go too long. It didn't need to go too long. All this match needed to have is like, look, all you need to do is have the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn win. That's all you got to do. Easy peasy. Don't overcomplicate it. And they didn't. It was just a nice, quick, solid, type of match. And the faces won, and the crowd went nuts. And that's all you needed to be. That's all it needed to be. Like, and this is where, like, I wish there was more wrestling booking like this, where it's like sometimes people just get to the feel-good ending. You don't have to drag it out a lot of the time, and it doesn't need to be 30 minutes long to be effective. Sometimes just a quick 10-minute match to get the point across, tells a complete story, and then you get an ending that makes everybody happy. And it's like, yeah, this was nice. I like nice. This is fine. This is completely fine and entertaining. And if you had told me 5 years ago that Billy Gunn winning a title is something I'd be marking out for on pay-per-view, I'd have called you a liar. Because I'm thinking way back to when I first started making videos. The second video I ever made, and you can go back and check this out, the second video I ever made was a video bashing both WWE and TNA for putting all their belts on old guys. Because I think at this point, Kane had won the world title from Rey Mysterio, that Money in the Bank show that they did. The Outsiders had won the TNA tag titles, which I was like, why is that a thing? And Bret Hart had beat The Miz for the U.S. title. A Bret Hart who can't bump because, if he bumps, he'll die. And I was like, what are we doing here? Why are all the old people winning titles in 2010? And here we are in 2023. And it's like, no, they effectively told that story, I feel like, with Billy, where they made me want to see him win a belt. So it's like, they earned that one. I'll let that one slide. They earned it. Most of the time they don't, but whenever an old guy wins a belt, it's like, throw him a bone and, show him some respect or whatever. I'm like, no, a lot of times it comes across as forced and stupid. But this time I was like, no, they effectively told that story. And I think they earned that, so I'll let it slide. So maybe I'm just getting softer in my own old age. I don't know. But yeah, I was happy to see the Acclaimed and Billy win it. The trios, I'm still not overly excited about a trios division, and I'm not a huge fan of those belts existing. But if they're going to exist, use it to create little moments like this, I'm okay with that, I guess. So that leads us into the main event. MJF successfully defending the AEW World Championship against his buddy, his best friend, Adam Cole, baby. Excellent match. This was a roller coaster unlike any other, where I didn't know where they were going to go. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know who was going to turn, if anybody was going to turn. They had me on my toes and kept me guessing the entire match. And when you got me hooked like that, you did something right. And this is one of those things I talk about where MJF truly is a special performer that gets it, because he understands what you need to do to get over in professional wrestling. And I wish we had 10 more people just like him, because it's like wrestling could use more minds and more performers like MJF. But I thought this match was excellent. All the little callbacks to their history, like MJF hitting the dive after teasing it earlier in the night in the pre-show match, having it end on a double pin off a double clothesline, and then MJF agreeing to restart the match under sudden death rules with no time limit. Excellent stuff. All great. All these great callbacks and everything. And having Roderick Strong involved, which actually felt justified given how everything had been built up, and keeping some suspicion on Adam Cole and what he was going to do, bringing in the Dynamite Diamond ring, and MJF ultimately deciding not to use it, showing that he had actually changed as a person. This change of his has been legitimate. And then you get the post-match where MJF wins and Adam Cole throws a bit of a temper tantrum, and MJF says that, I should have never trusted you. You never cared about me, and asked Adam to hit him with the belt. But he throws the belt down, doesn't do it. They both hug, and the show ends with their mashup theme playing with confetti flying as MJF holds the belt, and both of them, true best friends, stand tall together in the center of the ring. The biggest show in AEW history. This was outstanding. I loved every second of this. I think, and I think back to like the things that really make wrestling matches work. And this match had big spots in it. It had like flip pile drivers and big kickouts and things like that. But what really makes wrestling work is the things I talked about, where you keep me guessing, you get me emotionally invested in what's going on, and the big spots kind of complement that. It's not meant to be your sole storytelling device. You've got to be able to get me to connect on some other level so I care about all those big spots that you're doing. And this match did that very effectively. And I think back to that match in NXT that Adam Cole had with Johnny Gargano, which I believe Dave Meltzer said was the greatest match in WWE history, and I snorted, ugly laughed when he said that. I was like, dude, that was a modern-day indie-style match that I've seen 800,000 times in various other companies for years. It was just big spots and big kick-out. That's all it was. There was nothing beyond it. There was nothing more interesting going on. Besides that, it was just action for the sake of action, wrestling for the sake of wrestling, and big spots, big kickouts. I didn't care. And again, I'm not saying it was bad, but to go up there and say that it's the best match in WWE history, I thought was absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. And I look at this match, this is the type of match that where, like, if I were Adam Cole and I was like, what's the best match of my career? This is probably the one I would look at. Because I've seen Adam Cole work for years, and I would say this is the best match I've ever seen him involved in. This is probably the best match I've ever seen MJF have. He's had a few that I really enjoyed, but this one's very, very high up there. And I think I think they delivered big time in the big stadium setting with 80,000 plus cheering them on and being enthralled by everything that they were doing. This is everything you want a main event to be. Now, I thought it was an excellent closer to All In, and overall I thought I thought the entire show was very entertaining from start to finish. I was never bored. I was never tired. The closest I came to being bored was during the six-man tag, and that was, because I'd seen that match 800 times. But overall, I thought it was a very, very entertaining show that unfortunately got overshadowed by more behind-the-scenes bullcrap. But now, where does All In rank on pay-per-view of the year standings? Like, where would I put it? Honestly, like, comparing it to WrestleMania, like, I said WrestleMania 39 was the best WrestleMania in 20 years. Up until the last 5 minutes, like up until the finish to the main event, which was uncreative, deflating, and kind of took the wind out of all this goodwill that they had been built up over that entire weekend of shows. And it's like, man, if Cody wins the belt or Roman retains in a way that's more creative than the way they did, it would probably be WrestleMania 40, hands down, was the better show. But that deflating main event kind of took the winds out of the sail a little bit, and All In ended on such a high that I walked away from All In feeling better about it than I did WrestleMania, which is a shame because WrestleMania, like I said, top to bottom, probably the better show, especially when you take both nights into account. But man, that last 5 minutes to that main event really kind of put a sour taste in everybody's mouth. But I think I liked All In more than Wrestle Kingdom, which I barely, outside of Ospreay and Omega, I barely remember it. That was not one of their better Wrestle Kingdoms, again, outside of that one match. But I thought All In was a very, very good show, and I wish that was what the discussion was instead of more drama involving CM Punk, but that's the hand we've been dealt, unfortunately. And I'm going to close out here by very quickly giving my thoughts and predictions on Payback and All Out, the two pay-per-views happening this weekend, which I'm not going to watch because I've got stuff to do this weekend and I don't really care about either show. But I'll give you my thoughts on the overall card anyway. And if you're on the fence about checking out both shows, you can take my opinion for what it's worth and decide what you want to do. But Payback 2023, we have we have a Steel City Street Fight for the Undisputed Tag Team Championship. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking on Judgment Day members Finn Balor and Damian Priest. I feel like we've seen this match 8,000 times on Raw. It feels like this is the main event to Raw every week, so I don't really care. I say Owens and Zayn retain, and the Judgment Day's issues between Balor and Priest continue. That's really all I have to say about that. For the United States title, we got Rey Mysterio defending against Austin Theory. I would not be surprised if Austin Theory got the belt back, though. God, why? I don't. He's one of those guys. I talked about it in my last video. I don't understand their obsession with him. I think there are better talents they could be giving the time to, but it is what it is. For the Women's World Championship, we've got Rhea Ripley defending against Raquel Rodriguez. That could be a nice Haas match for the women. You don't get many Haas matches for the women, but that could be a fun one. But I think Rhea Ripley retains. I don't think it's anywhere near being time for her to drop it. Then we've got LA Knight versus The Miz in a Raw versus SmackDown match, although nobody cares about brand splits anymore because, what's the difference? But LA Knight goes over, and it's nice to be seeing him getting pay-per-view spots and promoted pay-per-view spots. Maybe this is a sign that maybe they got bigger and better things for him down the road. Maybe come Royal Rumble time, he's in the discussion to ultimately win the thing. We'll see. Then we've got a steel cage match, a match that probably should have been at SummerSlam, but Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus in a steel cage match to ultimately end their rivalry. That's probably the best promoted match on the show. And then for the World Heavyweight title that I do not give two shits about, it's Seth freaking Rollins defending against Shinsuke Nakamura. I expect Rollins to retain, and I expect Becky to win the cage match, because it's like Trish beat her in the first match, and then it's been a long journey to have the face get her win back, basically. So I think now's the time to do that. So Becky Lynch is my pick to ultimately go over there. So, that is Payback. That's all there is at this point in time. We'll see if they add more on SmackDown later tonight. But, it's not a terrible card, but I'm not overly excited about it either. But speaking about not overly excited for anything, here's the card for All Out. 9 matches so far. Probably have 1 or 2 more added to or added on Collision tomorrow night, but we'll see how that goes. And we have a tag team match. Eddie Kingston and Katsuyori Shibata taking on Blackpool Combat Club members Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. That's random as all hell. I guess Eddie and Shibata go over, but I don't care. For the ROH World Television title, it's Samoa Joe defending against Shane Taylor. Glad to see Shane Taylor back, but again, more ROH titles on AEW programming. I don't care. Joe retains. Then we have... for the TBS Championship, we've got Chris Statlander defending against Ruby Soho. That could be okay. I'll pick Statlander to retain, although I don't really care. There's too many belts. There's too many belts. We've got Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs, which should be a fun Haas match. I'll pick Miro to go over because he hasn't really done anything significant for over a year, and I think they want to reestablish him as something that is significant, so I'll pick Miro to win. Then we've got for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship, Better Than You Bebe defending against the winners of the Rampage Battle Royal tonight. Spoiler alert for Rampage. I already know who it is. The Dark Order won that Battle Royal. Ooh, the Dark Order, baby. This is pay-per-view quality. So, yay. This is exciting. It's so exciting. Then we've got Bullet Club Gold. The Guns, Jay White and Juice Robinson going up against the four-man team of FTR and the Young Bucks in a completely random 8-man tag match that feels like it belongs on Dynamite. Then we've got Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita in a singles match, which feels like the most well-built match on this show, although, as I've said, I'm not overly fond of Takeshita. Then for the International Championship, we've got Orange Cassidy defending against Jon Moxley. I expect Moxley to win the belt there. It'll finally be the end of Orange Cassidy's reign. And then we've got for the TNT Championship, we've got Luchasaurus defending his belt against Darby Allin, and nothing on there screams main event to me. So I don't know. If Punk's not going to be on the show, I have no earthly idea what they close with. Maybe Orange and Moxley. That might be your closer. This card looks like so skippable. How dare they charge $50 for this? That's ridiculous. Oh my God. This should have been a reduced... If you're going to do it, it should have been a reduced price. That's my take on the matter, but hey, what are you going to do? So yeah, neither pay-per-view really grabbing me. I'm going to spend my time this weekend doing other things, like taking care of my baby and walking my dog and putting together some bedroom furniture and all sorts of other fun things. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing and what I'm talking about, you can follow me on Twitter at PatrickGBook. I refuse to call it X because that's completely stupid. It's Twitter. It will always be Twitter. I don't care what Elon Musk says. It will always be Twitter. But you can follow me there at PatrickGBook. The link will be in the description. And once again, a reminder, purchase my books. Godzilla the Monster Fight Record on Amazon. It is available now. Link is in the description, and it is available for pre-order at barnesandnoble.com in all formats. Link is in the description, so enjoy that. Hopefully those of you who have purchased the book have enjoyed it and found it a fun read, and those of you who haven't purchased the book and are interested, again, the links are in the description down below for you to be able to check it out. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.